remember the old classic. I wrote the riff sitting on the toilet. So Realizing ended up as the first track on the album. Now that track actually existed on the 2000 demos. That's when I wrote the track, essentially. Again, musically, never recorded any vocals, even though I did have a kind of vague idea of how I wanted the chorus to sound. I never recorded it, and I never did the vocals on that point. I remember when I first kind of wrote it, it was only listening back to it, God, that's kind of my Slayer song, you know? But it came together really quickly. It seemed to come together really nicely. I loved, I wanted that kind of whole thrashy kind of vibe to it. And there's a demo somewhere in existence where I put the thing from the Gladiator, on my command, unleash hell, from back in the day. But yeah, it got tracked, and that's obviously when we added the lyrics, the lead. Paul played the lead break on that song, which just worked out really, really well. And yeah, so it just felt like a really great opening song, kind of, there you go, in your face, smashed it, yeah. So again, and the song itself lyrically deals with realizing, it's kind of, just realizing you can sit still, but the world's going to keep moving. You've got to get in there, and you've got to realize that, it's there for you to take. So, that's what the song's basically about. So Reap was probably the first it was a new song, completely new song on the album. And that was probably the first song I wrote in real terms. And again, came together really quite quickly. Changed over time. Everything was done on a Line 6 kind of Pod XT thing. I know kind of, especially the lead break, the fundamental wah underneath. I was using that a lot in the riffs we were writing at the time. It came together. It felt really good, real energetic. I know the intro changed a few times, and towards the end of, very late on in tracking, or towards the end, I think we just changed the intro slightly. Essentially the same, just what the guitars did. And again, I just love that song, and I love the way I kind of built that lead and all the elements building up together, and and I think it was one of those ones where we kept the original kind of chorus vocals from the demos. Is the one we kept because he had such a nice energy to him. But I felt that song really captured what I wanted it to say lyrically, which was a time in my life where there was someone who was incredibly aggressive towards me and around me, and would constantly put me down, and I really hated the fact that I kind of allowed him to do that. And it was kind of my song to that, going, you will reap what you sow. You put all this aggression or whatever, you will get it back, and there will come a time. So yeah, that's what those lyrics were about. And again, I love that song. I think a real triumph. So Your Disaster, again, I think the kind of main intro riff was actually, I think there's a recording of before the project fell apart in the studio. There is a very basic jam of that first riff that I was toying with, and again, that was one of the first songs written for the album along with Reap, and it seemed to come together really quickly. I can still vividly remember tracking the drums to it, you know what I mean? Because we had two electronic kits in the studio at that point in time, I can vividly remember doing that, and it kind of coming together. And lyrically, that song is essentially it's about my battle with my depression, basically. And it's basically me having a fight with it, saying you're trying to kill me, I'm going to try and kill you. It's kind of that, and the fact, it wins sometimes and I win sometimes, or what have you know what I mean? And again, so really cool, and Paul ended up doing the leads on that, and came out super cool. I love, the way the leads worked or whatever. So again, just really pleased with that song. So This Can't Be Real. I mean, if you're talking in the scheme of things about my musical history and whatever, it's track 4. It's the power ballad, whatever, you know what I mean. There was definitely a play when I was tracking in terms of the track listing for the album that this came in there. That song itself has been around for the kind of main idea and riff has been around for years, and it was written when I lost my grandma way back in the day. You know what I mean? She was kind of my hero, and so it was playing around, you know. And so you went from this kind of nice, you know, the kind of a nice, you know, clean intro into this noise at the end, and the idea was it was trying to have this real, you know, the riff was supposed to kind of just make you feel anxious and tense and you know, like I felt, you know, during that time. And so, you know, I'm happy I caught that, and I like the way all the, you know, really big layered vocals on it, which I really kind of liked and stuff, you know what I mean. And I know there's, again, the original demos, the kind of the clean intro was slightly different. And one night, me and Paul in the studio, we, you know, with Paul's help, we kind of reworked it slightly into what you hear on the album, you know what I mean? It's essentially the same thing. It was just a slight variation on the way it was played, but, you know, we kind of reworked it because I was just felt it needed a little something, and, you know, I felt we got that in the end, you know what I mean? So it was kind of nice to do that little bit of keys as well, you know, not something I do very often, but it just felt like a little keyboard line in there as well, which was kind of cool. So we like that. So waiting for, again, that the intro, that's been around for years. You know, that was something we jammed on way back in the day. There's probably a live recording of that in a jam session somewhere, you know, from right back in the day. And that song, the basics of the song instrumentally were written in the 2000 sessions I spoke about. And so, again, kind of fleshed it out, came together. There was no vocals on it, and I think there was no chorus particularly. It was just, yeah, I changed some bits when I retracked it for the album, and it became what it became. And yeah, really chuffed with how it came out and how the parts came together. You know, just really, yeah, came together really nice and heavy. Got a kind of nice groove to it. Again, Paul played the lead on that one, as you get in the impression here. You know, any leads Paul plays, that's his strength, not mine. So yeah, and just, yeah, really cool. So the voices, that was a new track for the album. I remember writing the whole song started off as that drum beat, tack, 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 tack. I just wrote that sitting in the kitchen on the stool, and that's where that song came from. And as it was kind of fleshing out, I remember, you know, writing the fills going into the verse, and that was, you know, it was very Dave Lombardo, you know, that's kind of what that, you know, kind of felt. And again, kind of really enjoyed the way it was going, the changes and whatever. I enjoyed that chorus. I really kind of liked that, the way the chorus ended up and what have you. And yeah, kind of a short and sweet song, and fairly self-explanatory lyrically. The voices is essentially the voices in my head. You know, this constant battle with the voices to silence them, to win, to, you know, shut them up, whatever. That's essentially the crux of what the song's about. So, Screaming, that was a new song for the album. It all started with that kind of the kind of intro riff, and that came from, it was a phone recording. I'd been to my friend Chris Lecky's house, and he bought this little combo amp with, you know, effects and stuff, and I was having a little play on his guitar and with all the delays and stuff, and that riff was born. And when I was kind of came back to the studio and started writing, you know, fleshing it out, if you like, I kind of obviously started, you know, did the whole thing of ramping the volumes up and whatever. And to me, there was that Orion. I wanted that Metallica Orion feel, you know, you know. So that's the crux of where that idea came from. And then it kind of felt, like I say, you know, these blocks of you know, lyrically and musically, I kind of kept it in these blocks of different stages, you know what I mean? So it's kind of just rebuilding, screaming life, everything that's going on, and then kind of building yourself back up and rising from the ashes, as it were. So that's that song. So Will Not Fail, I remember the old classic. I wrote the riff sitting on the toilet in my head, kind of came in the studio and wrote it. I think I put it on my phone as well. So the main riff came from that, and then the rest of the song got fleshed out. I loved, I remember writing it, and that kind of discordant part coming out of the kind of chorusy, whatever part you call it, with the kind of harmony. It just felt great, and I just really enjoyed it. And I like the kind of groove to it, you know what I mean? Real kind of nice heavy groove to it. So a kind of favourite on the album in a lot of ways. And the song itself is Will Not Fail. It's kind of like me having a direct conversation with my father, basically saying, I will not fail. It always felt like, I was never good enough, and so this was me kind of going, no, I'm going to prove I can do this. We are different people. We're never going to agree, but I will not fail. A great, good, heavy, groovy song. Yeah, I like it a lot. So the end, again, that was a new track for the album, and actually, little thing is the kind of midsection was the very last piece of music written for the album, and I think me and Paul were in the studio that evening, and we were working on something that came together, and it was very kind of organic, and there was a real sense of unity when we wrote that middle section. I still love it to this day. It's fantastic, you know what I mean? But again, yeah, nice riffs and whatever, and I like all the different feelings and parts, and the whole sentiment of that song, the end, is basically just feeling you've reached the end, and where'd you go from there, and how'd you get out, how'd you move on from it, you know what I mean? So but yeah, nice. Got some great parts of that song, and that middle section is still one of my favourite things we've ever written. So fantastic. So never forget, I mean, that as a concept and as a bunch of riffs has been around for most of my adult life. Essentially that kind of the main vocal part, the 4 lines or whatever it was written the day I lost my friend. One of my best friends, Greg, died suddenly when we were late teens, and I wrote that evening. Was whatever, and so that and the basic kind of parts were around for years, basically, and there's so many incarnations of it on recordings of trying to find out a way. And I remember for years it was like I kind of wanted this big ending, like the song Daddy by Korn. I wanted this kind of ending where you just break down, you're screaming and you lose your plot, and I could never make that work for me. I could just never kind of find my take on that, and so ended up with that again, the ending in various guises, and the octave parts had been around, and it all kind of came together, and then I added the kind of choral vocals and whatever, and it just felt right. And yeah, again, it just all sort of came together at the right times, and very, very emotional song for me. A lot of history in it, you know what I mean? Those lyrics are just me dealing with the loss of one of my best friends, basically, and turning that into a tribute to him, essentially, you know what I mean? So, and I thought it was a great way to finish the album. It just felt right. It felt the right kind of song. Yeah, came out really, really well. So really pleased, really pleased. Well, I'm really proud of the album still. I think, as with any creative person, musician, whatever, you can critique your work, and we've moved on as producers, as writers, as whatever, but I'm really proud of that body of work, and I listen to it and I'm still, yeah, you know what, this is cool, I'm glad I did it, I'm proud, it stands up, I'm happy. So and I'm happy about where RDH is going as well, musically as well. So overall, a great experience, and let's see what the future holds.